This is Power 987 Podcast. Now we're talking. Subscribe to Power 987 Podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. There's more on power987.co.za.
Exactly 25 minutes to 2, Power Lunch on Power 98.7. Now we are talking. Let's get into our property feature. Neighbors. Everybody loves neighbors. We don't really, do we? So most people expect their homes to be places of comfort, privacy, peace. But what happens when a neighbor turns your daily life into a source of stress? From excessive noises to boundary dispute, illegal buildings, work to harassment, nuisance behavior, parking conflicts. You know these things. I mean, I was sharing the story the other day that one of the neighbors where I stay was complaining that the other neighbor's tree, the leaves are falling into her yard, and so the tree must be cut, or else she's gonna institute some action. And I'm like, Banna, can we get that petty? Because he would always complain, I must come and clean them up. I'm not cleaning them up, but it's a tree. And you could tell that the situation is not even about the tree. Clearly the neighbors had problems with each other. But while many people are unsure whether they simply have to tolerate situations, there are legal rights and remedies available in certain circumstances. So today I want us to explore what legally constitutes a problematic neighbor. When a complaint becomes a legal matter. Can I take somebody whose tree leaves are falling into my yard? Can I take them to court? Can I call the police on them? The roles of the body corporate, the homeowners association and municipalities, and what steps residents can take to protect their rights while avoiding unnecessary conflict. And the reason we are having this conversation is that not every annoying neighbor is breaking the law. Is it the loud music? Is it the kids playing around and kicking their balls and toys into your yard? Or just kids making noise during the day where you're working from home? The right to peaceful enjoyment of property. We are on the line with Associate Attorney at SBL Inc., Attorneys Alison Laxton, to help us with that. Good afternoon, Alison.
Hi, good afternoon, Kwena, and to all your listeners. It's nice to be on air with you again.
Always,
hope you're keeping well.
Always a pleasure being with you. I appreciate your time indeed. And I think our first point of call, and this might be a very wide question, but I'm going to ask nonetheless, Alison. I hope you are able to answer. What legally qualifies someone as a problematic neighbor?
So I think this is super context specific, right? And it really depends in the area that you stay, what is allowed. What do your bylaws say? If you're staying in an agricultural area, obviously a problem neighbor is going to look very different to someone who stays in a complex. So this is a great conversation to have. I don't know if anybody here has been keeping track of the news, but there was a neighbor dispute recently in Durban where a animal rescuer had 68 dogs on her property, and the neighbor had complained. And it's now become a very big, controversial dispute between the neighbors, with the community. And I think the main question that we have to ask, if somebody is a problem neighbor, is this a problem that most people would reasonably say, and it interferes unreasonably with their rights? Okay, so it's not just someone who is sensitive to noise or someone who is sensitive to dogs barking, for example. It's got to be a reasonable complaint that if most people were in your shoes, they would be having a problem with this neighbor. So does it impact
So
on
it
your
shouldn't be
rights,
like because I hate dogs and my neighbor
Correct.
has dogs, then it's
Correct.
nuisance. Yeah.
Correct. So you are entitled to undisturbed use and enjoyment of your property. And if you are in a complex, obviously that applies to your unit, right? Your section or your unit. So the minute somebody starts to unreasonably interfere with that use and enjoyment, so maybe there's persistent noise, they're harassing you, they are building illegally into your property, or there's any other sort of nuisance, so maybe smoke or burning of dacha, that can also be a huge complaint in the complexes. If somebody is smoking dacha or cigarettes and it comes into my property, that becomes a nuisance. And the minute that nuisance is unreasonably interfering with your rights, that's a problem, neighbor. So it's very context specific. It's going to be guided by where you live, how you live in a complex or on a freestanding property, and what do your bylaws say as well.
So at what point, Alison, does a neighbor dispute move from being an annoyance to becoming a legal matter?
So the minute this person is breaking a law or a rule in a complex, which we can say is enforceable, then it becomes a legal matter. So let's say, for example, this person keeps parking in your parking spot at your complex, and you are paying thousands of rands every month for your nice parking spot, right? Then they are subject to fines by the body corporate or the homeowners association. Then it becomes a legal matter because now they are breaching a rule or a law. If you have bylaws, for example, let's say you don't like dogs at all and your neighbor loves dogs, and they've got 10 dogs on the property. If the dogs are a nuisance and barking all day, and let's say the bylaws say only 2 dogs or 4 dogs are allowed on a property, then that is a breach of the bylaws, and that's when it becomes a legal matter. Then you get JMPD or whoever your metro police are to come out and to enforce the bylaws that they are breaking. It can even apply to agricultural animals on a residential property. So in some areas you are allowed hens, you're not allowed roosters. And you're tired of your neighbor's rooster waking you up at 4 a.m, that is a breach of a bylaw. So as soon as there is a law, either from the municipality or, if there is harassment, perhaps they've told you they're going to come and shoot you or assault you, then that is something you can then take on legally. But it cannot be merely an annoyance to you.
So I can't do anything about those Hadidas because they don't belong to anyone.
Unfortunately not. And you'll find you'll probably get in trouble if you harm them in any way. But we don't want to hear about Kwena and the SPCA.
The next thing, I'm not on air for the whole week because I'm going through a case. I'm calling you, Alison. You'll be my lawyer. Because
over the Hadidas.
The Hadidas. Moabelo versus the Hadidas. But
it is annoying, but unfortunately, we just have to deal with them.
So what rights do homeowners and tenants have when a neighbor's behavior affects their quality of life? I mean, as you said, those are the things obviously will be relative where, again, maybe taking up parking space or using up your abusing the boundary lines and so on and so forth. Those are the things that you can. So what rights do homeowners and tenants have? Can we take it straight to the police, to the courts, or do we have to move maybe through the homeowners association first and so on?
Well, the nice thing is, as a tenant, your landlord is actually obliged to give you undisturbed use and enjoyment of your property. So your landlord should be assisting you if you are dealing with a problem neighbor in a complex. They should be the one escalating your complaint to the body corporate. Because remember, as a tenant, your relationship is with your landlord. You've got a lease, and your landlord is the one who's a member of the body corporate. They have a direct line to the trustee. So they need to be the ones assisting you insofar as possible to make sure that you enjoy your rights in terms of the lease, to undisturbed use and enjoyment of the property. So that's the great thing about being a tenant. There's right to have that you can enforce in the lease agreement. Now, if you don't have a rental, you're a homeowner, it becomes a little bit more tricky depending on where you live. So if you live in a complex, you're part of a body corporate, you will obviously escalate your complaints to the trustees or the managing agent who works for the trustees. And you will say to them, these are the body corporate rules, and this person is infringing on the rules, and I need there to be some enforcement so that I can have some, reprieve from whatever they are doing. So if their dogs bark constantly and you're trying to work from home, and you've had a word with the neighbor and it's not getting better, or, for example, they keep parking in your parking bays, or they keep throwing garden cuttings into your swimming pool, for example. These are all things the managing agent or the trustees for the body corporate should be enforcing. So they will usually do a warning to that homeowner, and then they will start fining them. And nobody will behave quicker than someone who has to pay, right? So the minute people start getting fined, they start to play ball with the body corporate. But look, if there's more serious stuff, so you're on a freestanding property. Now you have to start looking at your municipal bylaws and your rights as a homeowner to any building encroachments on your property, etc. And then you have to get the metro involved. And if that can't be a way for you, you do have to get a private attorney to assist you. But yeah, it does depend on your metro. The Metro Police in Cape Town might be a lot stricter, and I've seen it down there, where they are very strict if neighbors complain and bylaws are being broken. They crack down quite harshly on them. So it does depend on where you stay. And obviously, if something is serious, if someone is threatening to assault you or to harm you or to harm your children, you'll call the SAPS, and if need be, they will apply to have a protection order for you, and they may have to arrest that person if there's any criminal conduct as well.
Let's take a few calls, Alison, if I may. Kabelo, good afternoon.
Afternoon, Kwena and your guests and your listeners. Yeah, man, mine is just a short one. Me and my neighbor, he had a lot of trees that are coming into my house, so I shaved them off and they were destroying the wall. So now later he has installed cameras, and now these cameras, they are infringing my rights, man. They are coming into my yard. When I open the window of my toilet, I can see it. It's starting to record. The red light, the blue light comes on.
So the cameras are facing your property?
The cameras are facing my property. The cameras are they see almost that side of the corner of my property. So the thing is, I don't want to talk to this guy, man. This guy, I don't want to. I just
talk
want
to him, Chief.
Oh.
Kabelo, talk to your neighbor. Kanti, what happened to being neighborly? Huh? Talk to your neighbor and say your camera angles are making me uncomfortable because they are facing my bathroom. I feel like you are peeping.
Yes, but he knew. Can't you see it too?
Okay, let's.
Thank you. You should see it. Like he's recording.
Yeah.
We have a saying in property law, and we say, high walls make good neighbors.
Yeah.
So look, CCTV cameras are pretty tricky. There was a point where the city of Joburg was looking at regulating them quite strictly, and then they backed down heavily on taking those steps. So CCTV is quite unregulated still, but there's no direct law. However, if you feel that it invades your privacy, you may have statutory rights here to take, steps with an attorney to say that it is causing us distress and constitutes harassment to a degree. So if you feel that you are being watched or followed with the cameras and that it is causing a nuisance to you, then you may have grounds to get an attorney to assist you with a complaint. Alternatively, what we do suggest, is like Kwena is saying, chat to your neighbor, ask if the cameras can be positioned differently. A lot of homeowners will say CCTV deters crime, and they say that's why they put it up, so that, there's a deterrent there for criminals. But you can also ask them to move those cameras to a more favorable position so that it does not invade your privacy. And if that doesn't work, an attorney will be able to assist you with getting in touch with that neighbor and asking them to move those cameras, and then, if necessary, pursue some sort of claim under, a violation of your privacy. So it would have to be looked at in the context of what is going on there. But look, if possible as well, if you are able to do so, maybe putting up some privacy screens or some barriers is also something that can be done if the neighbor refuses to cooperate. And that's just something that, we suggest. But look, if you have a body corporate and you're in a complex, this is the wonderful thing about complex living. Your managing agent will be able to assist you with something like this, and they will be able to speak to that neighbor for you as well. And obviously they want harmony in the complex, so they will assist with internal dispute resolution there.
Boniswa, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I hope you are.
I am good. How are you?
I'm okay. In the hood, we don't have bylaws. And attorneys and managing we just have prayers. We just pray that your neighbors, maybe reasonable people. But essentially, I owe my neighbors, an apology because I experienced something. And the reason I say I owe them an apology, I'm going to tell you what happened, but it's from them that I'm actually learning how to be a better neighbor. It just so happened I had a situation. There was a time I had a radio interview by 11 at night, and I was having that interview inside my wardrobe because my neighbors were so loud. It sounded like the speaker was literally inside my bedroom. So I had to cushion, blankets, so the noise doesn't come across. And that's on a Monday, and it was exam season and stuff. But that's just another day in the hood. And because we don't have these things on paper and black and white, and it's all too much, and hence you have to build a relationship with your neighbor. So what happened recently, I owe them an apology, is sometimes, so I had an experience which was really traumatic. It was like a domestic situation in the house, me and my brother. My other time I saw about fights that happened in the household, and so we're having that situation, me and my brother, and I'm literally screaming out for help because, I'm scared, danger, etc., etc. So my neighbors got out, and they were really scared, and they were so traumatized. And then this just made me realize that a lot of the times also in the hood, this whole neighbor situation is you also go through the trauma of the neighbors. Me, the week before, was they were having a fight, I was traumatized. And then the week after, it's us. And I've seen that old lady ever since. She's really traumatized. She's not the same. Now we have to lock and all of those things. So this neighbor situation, and these are things you can't put in a book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How are you going to say, or the neighbors mustn't, entertain, especially in the hood. I mean, high walls are ideal, but in the hood, it's actually the low walls. I think that's what creates the best neighbors.
All
the
right.
fact that next door, And I mean, that creates better situations. But also, the best way to be a good neighbor is to also realize how you would want people to treat you.
Yeah. I mean, being neighborly is the first start. Boniswa, thank you for that. Let me take Khwadi and then we'll respond to both. Khwadi, good afternoon.
Let's go. How are you, my brother?
Good, how are you, Khwadi?
All right, man. You know how to drill better. In my case, it's the Ram Square, Pick and Pay, and the barber shop. It's both encroachment. We no longer experience the sun.
So, Victor, Khwadi, your line is a bit muffled. You're saying that they built a mall.
Yeah, they built next to us, Pick and Pay. Ram Square in Africa.
Yes. I know that place.
I'm the immediate neighbor.
Yeah.
So they are delivery trucks. The delivery gate is almost closer to us as residents. In terms of zoning, business cannot share the same neighborhood with the residents. There must be a buffer. You see? So in terms of zoning, that buffer has not been there. There was a street, when you recall, coming from Mosano down East Masidi, it crosses Marega, it passes our yard. So they closed that street and then they built Pick and Pay. And then that Pick and Pay is our closest immediate neighbor.
Okay.
So we no longer experience the sun from the north and coming to the value shops. there is an encroachment and cameras are peeping into our yard.
Okay.
So
Khwadi,
I did report this thing with TNPG Director Nkuna. I remember I wanted the Chief Whip of Tshwane.
Yeah.
Marshal that he must come and explain some such of things.
Okay. No, Khwadi, thank you so much. Sorry. I'm not sure because this line was a little bit low, Alison, but
yes, I did manage.
Yeah, he's talking about there's a Pick and Pay as a neighbor, and there's encroachment, there's cameras, the delivery trucks and all those. How do you deal with something like that where it's a business next to you?
It's difficult because if the business is zoned correctly and it's a mixed-use area, then you can be in a situation where a business can pop up next to your house, and that can be very disruptive. Look, if depending on your city or your municipality, they should have a contact for someone who deals with zoning, control, and enforcement. So if you are not sure if the Pick and Pay is zoned correctly and has been built legally, you can escalate that to your local, COJ, City of Johannesburg contact, or if you're outside of COJ, then you can always contact your closest municipality and ask them, is the zoning correct? As for your privacy concerns, you can write to the management of the business and ask them to please make sure that the cameras do not impinge on your privacy. But if they don't assist you internally there, that's when I say, perhaps you'd want to escalate to either a private attorney, or if you have a fantastic ward councillor who's proactive and can assist with these problems, to get somebody out to ensure that they are being compliant, you can do that as well. So it's a bit of a tricky situation, but look, if they have got their zoning correct and then they feel that they're not encroaching on your privacy, then they may simply suggest that you build higher walls or make provision for some sound insulation of sorts. But it can be very, very disruptive, unfortunately.
Another one says, I have a neighbor with lots of dogs and he does not clean the yard, and the dog poop is all over. There's a bad smell coming into my yard. How do I do it? So the issue, it's not the dogs making noise, but it's just that because the neighbor doesn't clean and the dogs poop all over the place, there's just a constant smell of dog poo.
If that's outside the house, imagine inside. So people often get confused with animals and they say, phone the SPCA, phone the SPCA. So the SPCA is mandated to deal with animal cruelty, right? So if you suspect that the animals are not being given adequate food, water, or shelter, or there's cruelty, then you obviously can lay a complaint with them, let them come and investigate. But where you feel that there is a health hazard and there's a bylaw infringement, that's when your metro is going to get involved, and you should have a health inspector for your area. Try and find out who that health inspector is, because it is important for them to also come and check the amount of dogs. Are they lawfully allowed in terms of bylaws to have the amount of dogs that they have? Like I said recently in Durban, there was a property with 68 dogs on a residential property.
Imagine that.
And yes, and the SPCA was also involved, as well as the metro and a health inspector from the municipality. So those are the three people you need to start contacting, because the SPCA cannot do more than investigate animal cruelty. They're not there to enforce bylaws. That's your job of your metro police. So you have to engage on both sides with both of them.
Just finally, Alison, if I may, so what practical step should residents take, I guess, maybe to document the dispute and strengthen their position if legal action becomes necessary?
So I think the most important thing is to document everything, right? So if you have a telephone call with the neighbor, make sure that you are sending them a message after that call to say, hi, this is what we discussed, or, I've now had to call you again regarding the parties that you're having at your house every weekend. So record dates and incidents of those dates and all communication you have. And if you can, then take photos and videos if relevant. If you've laid any complaints with the metro or the municipality against the problem neighbor, or even your homeowners association or body corporate, you must keep copies of those complaints. And if anybody else is affected, because remember, a problem neighbor is not going to be usually for one person. There's going to be multiple people affected usually. Then gather those statements as multiple homeowners and work together to try and get a resolution to the problem, for example. We see this with houses that are hijacked in residential suburbs or in the cities, where neighbors start to complain about the state of that hijacked building, and then they put pressure on the city to get things done. So work together with your affected neighbors if need be. Power is in numbers, and I say keep record of absolutely everything. You don't want to keep it to he said, she said. Have some proof of what's going on.
Right. Alison, we're going to have to leave it there. But thank you as always for making time to speak to us. For people that want to get in touch with SBL Inc., how do we find you guys?
So you can have find us on Google, SBL Law. Otherwise, you can have a look at sbllaw.co.za, and all of our contact details will be there online.
Alison Laxton, Associate Attorney at SBL Inc.
You've been listening to Power 987 Podcast. For more podcasts, visit power987.co.za or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.